Ever since the 13th of August 2013, 81,225,128 levels have been designed, created, and uploaded to the Geometry Dash servers, the vast majority of them being completely unnoteworthy. One of these was created 9 years ago, the other yesterday. I welcome all of you to ask me which one's which, but once in a lifetime within this endless sea of painfully average nothingness there arises a singular level that can only be described as an unspeakable horror. A level that goes above and beyond in specializing in the field of sucking balls that it leaves every single player stunned that a level this shitty can even exist. Levels that cross the ordinary boundary of terrible. Levels that go beyond having horrible gameplay, beyond all possible dimensions of sense, beyond all of that. Levels that are so shocking in their insane quantities of pure shit that they cross over from the ordinary realms of terrible into the abysmal. A release so poor that the only thing you can do is sit back and silently observe as you question what the fuck are we all doing as the community you inhabit feeds upon a rotting corpse with an open smile. A single piece of media so terrible that it can officially take the title of the worst of all time without competition. As of today, Abyss of Darkness is the worst level I've ever played, and the reason I've added a tier below terrible to the list. Terrible is a word used to describe something with no substance, but we've reached the point where strong words such as terrible are no longer usable. This level isn't just bad, it's awful. Abyss of Darkness has achieved something that tens of millions of other levels have failed to do in the past, and that is make me mad. Just like a real abyss, we've officially hit rock bottom and the realm of negative substance. Thanks to our own ignorance, the only way to resurface is to swim through the bone-shattering water pressure, pressing directly against the skulls of a community of millions. And it's about time we assess the damage. Before we begin the dive into detailing how a video game level is worse than coming out as gay in the Middle East, it's best we cover the immediate surface. What is Abyss of Darkness about? What is the theme here? Underwater? Well, looking at the title you would sure hope so. After all, an abyss is generally referred to as a dark underwater chasm, which on its own is a great idea to theme any level around. After all, for once there'd actually be a valid reason to cover the walls in stupid pointy rocks, but if you look at the level itself for longer than around 2 seconds, you may notice that there isn't really much blue there, or any other color there, outside of course, piss red. Turns out the only inspiration the level took from a real abyss is to make it out 95% air. I would say they tried to make this level look like hell, but you know, that's just too original. This level's real theme is pure, concentrated schizophrenia, as that description is generally the best alternative to the phrase, sucking complete dick. This is without question one of the most fucked levels I've ever played. Even down to its melodic fragment, this level is an absolute disaster. To say this level's music has bad sync would be an understatement. This level is a rare example of an entire team of 22 people not even bothering with trying to hold up one of the basic fundamentals of the medium it's using. They didn't even try. Any piece of the gameplay that syncs to the song is entirely a coincidence, and to make things worse, throughout the level the project inconsistently switches between what that coincidence even is. Sometimes it syncs to the beat, sometimes it syncs to the melody, sometimes it's a rogue jump that syncopates to fucking nothing. The song was already adjusted to make it easier for you. You could have not picked something more basic if you got a newborn baby to sit on a microphone and you fucking dorks still found a way to screw it up. But don't you worry, it's not anywhere near a flop compared to the gameplay. Matter of fact, I'm kind of reluctant to talk about this gameplay because it'll probably end up with me waking up the neighbors. I am astonished that not just one, but 22 people can suck balls at gameplay this much. I've never had a worse experience with gameplay in my entire life, and I've played this! There are countless jumps that are completely off screen, not even with a big stupid sign pointing to the fuckhole you're about to enter. Instead, we get treated to a big serving of... For a level that barely moves at all, you would think that it wouldn't be impossible to predict any movement by sight. Well, not that you were going to, since the only reason anyone plays this shit is because of a pointless number, but you would think that these goobers would at least try, just a little bit. Surely you would think that out of the minimum of 50,000 people that worked on this thing, at least one of them would speak up to the group about all the hundreds of thousands of players they're stabbing in the dick hole. Did no one ever notice the dozens of horrible choke points with completely no setup? The exasperating tight timings that don't fit at all? The waves that are twice as hard as every other part in the level for no reason? The speed changes that enter or next to the level at random? The triggers that sync up to nothing and don't generate any emphasis at all? The various timings that are hidden in complete darkness? And just in general, the idea to make the level look like this? You would think that a collaborative effort of at least 22 people would result in the player seeing more than 4 objects on the screen at once. Where is everything? I can't see anything! Is it that hard to make a level visually clear for more than 10 seconds at a time? Why on God's green flat earth did it take take 6 whole people to make the gameplay? Why did it even take 1? I'm surprised it even took 0. Why do you need more than 1 person to make a layout in the first place? This isn't the Avengers. Shit only takes like 5 hours from beginning to end anyway. Wouldn't you think that experienced creators would know that all you get when you mix 10 different gameplay styles at once is just a big old clusterfuck that blends together like glass and concrete? This part's gameplay is so bad that I got stuck in practice and had to open the editor only to discover that there was a completely invisible wall with a trigger inside a row of spikes. Why? Was this just to bait people into looking in your level and reading your unfunny messages? Because if it was, congrats, we've all seen them. You can delete your level now, but don't you worry, this level doesn't only just settle for being one of the most frustrating playing experiences I've ever had in 7 years of search history. Look at that bar, motherfucker. We're not even close. You wish. This isn't even half of it. It only gets worse from here. Let me ask you a question. What would you expect from this level? Well, personally, I expected a real fucking abyss. I still can't believe they overlooked that. But what would a good decoration job of this level require? A minimal baseline would be at least to make it visually clear. Any good level worth its weight in sand will let the player see where in the hell they're going. Unfortunately for us, this is extreme demon land where everyone blindly accepts getting bleach thrown in their eyes because we're all 7-year-olds who ate all the fucking sand. I cannot even begin to comprehend why someone would choose to build like this. For what reason would someone actively choose to make it so that dozens of vital gameplay elements are completely covered in black? Is it to make the level more interesting? Because if it is, then it's a bit of a red flag that your level is more engaging when it's hidden behind a wall of mysterious black shit. Well, now that I think about it, if I made this gameplay, I wouldn't want anyone to see the bloody thing either. This looks like trash. While we're at it, let's strip all the dark stuff away for a minute. Let's look under the hood. What do you see? I don't know about you, but what I see is a painfully average decoration job that outside of block design barely looks up to date for 2019, and depending what part you're looking at, looks even more obsolete than that. Just take a look at the structuring job. Considering that Glow creators have much more freedom when it comes to the complexity of objects they can decorate, it's embarrassing how little this level deters from the basic ass stencil that it was built on almost 4 years ago. Just look at how weak these pulses are. Considering all the chaos I'm seeing on screen right now, I don't know how you somehow managed to make a level with around 20 million pulses to look so lifeless. You can't just cheap out on the personality, you gotta have one. Slaughterhouse is one of the worst levels of the decade, and even being the subject of my most negative video was probably still going way too easy on it. But as insufferable as Slaughterhouse was, at least it had the claim to fame of being the only Geometry Dash level to ever yell back at you after you yell at it. Even if it didn't do a great job of it and it looks like it was made by a 6-year-old that just discovered swear words, I will concede that Slaughterhouse was at least kind of intimidating. What original personality does this level have? Sucking dick? If that's the case, fucking nailed it. Abyss of Darkness is absolutely nothing to call its own. 22 creators, no personality. The most frustrating bit is that you can't even blame any of the creators for the atrocity you're currently witnessing, because as someone who spent thousands of hours in the editor, if I got conscripted into decorating this, I would probably drop out immediately the moment I saw this gameplay. The best creators can take any pile of used tissues and make it look at least a little stylized and interesting, but creators have limits, and this level reaches far past them. Not to mention that these guys aren't the best creators. Judging them by their discographies, they seem to be mostly pretty average, and for a layout this fucked, you need nothing less than the big guns. And getting approximately 1.5 guys who know what the hell they're getting into ain't cutting it. Remember, you can't make something good if the leader in charge of the gameplay is some jackass who makes levels like a bumbling chimpanzee who doesn't know how to correctly stack 2 rectangles on top of each other without shitting their pants. This is easily the best part in the whole level. Yes, really. This one, and it's not even their fault either. If I was tasked with the job of decorating this shit without moving anything, it would probably take me 4 months to make a part 2. If anything, these guys did great at their real job, covering up all the crap so nobody notices the war crimes they're hiding back there. Gotta be honest, it's a pretty excellent tactic, hiding all the shitty parts of your level behind fuzzy mist. After all, Super Probably level is the worst thing since Sliced Dick, and nobody even noticed. There's no way of knowing the true horrors of this level without opening up yourself and witnessing the madness. And that's why I'm so mad about this level. I fell for their tricks. I got hoodwinked. When I looked at this level for the first time, I thought it wasn't so bad. But when I opened it up, all I got was a half-eaten dick. This level is a half-eaten dick. And if you really want to know who is to blame for all this, you must look to the man behind the whole operation. It seems almost redundant to say that gameplay channels do not have the best reputation in this community, whether that be for their abysmal levels of effort, their child grabbing and insulting guerrilla marketing tactics, or even regular child grabbing for the really cool ones. These guys are served very well as this game's absolute low end for Geometry Dash related content, not only just because a literal fucking 6-year-old can run one of these, but because of something deeper. Coming from the side of a community where time and effort is at slightly above minimum importance sometimes, I would find it difficult to even call these guys YouTubers. They're trend chasers. They're just a graveyard for replays of the current fad, which 95% of the time is some bullshit like Silent Club Fuck X, really shitty Wave Edition. You think these guys are recording all this dumb shit for fun? Fuck no! If they wanted fun, they would go to Rainbow's End and shit their pants on the stratosphere, or go have sex in some bushes. Each and every single one of these channels exists out of pure laziness. If you can't be fucked to put in the effort to make something actually interesting, if all else fails, you can always be gameplay channel number 46,853. These channels are basically completely useless to the adult brain, but they still serve an important function in the community. They're not YouTubers, they're Redditors, content aggregators who lazily take the actually interesting stuff that other people have made for them and shove it on their own channel for profit. And because you can crank these things out about negative 15 seconds, YouTube shows them to every 7-year-old on the platform, which if you've been paying attention is quite a lot of people. Those same 7-year-olds proceed to treat these shitty replays of Hard Demons like the greatest and most impressive thing they've ever seen, and turn the comment section into a fun game of who can suck off the creator the hardest. An endless game of children marveling over the impressive skills shown in the video, which 85% of the time is just hacked anyway. And all of these barely readable comments go right to their big fat heads, and within 5 years time all of them become serial killers who eat babies. These guys are always the ones who turn out this way and pull this shit because no one above the age of 10 in their right mind is paying attention to these guys and what they're doing until it's too late and they've blown up 10 countries. They're all obsessed with views, money, and subscribers. And as a shitty Geometry Dash YouTuber who really likes watching the numbers go up, the easiest way to grow your internet space is to be the head leader behind the next big top 1 extreme demon, and doing everything within your power to guarantee the level's virality, making sure that your name is attached to it, spreading both the level and your brand across the entire community like an uncontrollable virus. But a virus cannot live without a host, and the host behind Abyss of Darkness can only be described as one of the most problematic individuals the Geometry Dash community would ever see. For years, nobody's name signaled everything terrible about the Geometry Dash community more than Exen. Ever since this game was in its baby phase, this guy's entire life has been spent training to become the least trustworthy individual on the planet, like the world's shittiest ninja. The only reason any of you cunts have ever heard about him in the first place is because he lied to hundreds of thousands of people on dozens of occasions over a span of years, to the point that they weren't even occasions anymore and just business as usual. Let me explain. Back in the far off year of 5 AD, there existed this thing called Geometry Dash Update 2.0, and the planet looks like this, except Malaysia, which at the time was a utopia with no threats. But more importantly, the Geometry Dash community was a lawless wasteland that was only held together by a single class system, only existing in 2 polar opposites. The first one being the top 5 players, which were all heralded as gods by the entire community, and then everyone else who were disgusting peasants who get raped in hell. And I know that sounds almost exactly the same as how it is now, but back then it was much, much worse. Now there's at least other ways to become well known in the community, but back then that was pretty much it. The top players were the center of everything, and anyone that dared to try to cheat the system would get skinned alive. Everything had to be 100% pure, since around 2015 everyone in the Geometry Dash community suddenly had a universal fear of powerful hardware, because no one really wanted an environment where you had to remortgage your house just to play fucking base cave. Unlike today when everyone and their dad has Mega Hack V10 with 50 hacks on at once, even the smallest modifications are huge deals, and it would be years before doing things like openly using 61Hz monitors didn't result in everyone being absolutely pissed, stemming from the fear of making the divide between mobile and PC players even more extreme than it already was. I know this may sound crazy to you Exen fans who joined the game 5 minutes ago, but there was once a time where the high-level competitive Geometry Dash scene actually gave a shit about having an equal playing field, and breaking that was one of the worst things you could possibly do. The only way for everyone to get to the top was to sit down, buckle your fuckles, and become the greatest spike jumper man who ever lived. Everyone except Exen, who chose instead of course to become a complete and total scumbag. Succuban Circles, Slaughterhouse, Innards, just 3 of the dozens of levels he hacks while claiming legitimacy. He wanted to be known and respected as the best player, but more importantly, the views of the best player. And over the span of years, he got there through nothing less than the manipulation of an entire community. For this dickhead, hacking them and lying about it like a regular loser wasn't enough. He would set up fake progress videos and also macro live on stream to make people think he was legitimate. And they did. For years. Proof standards back then were absolutely terrible, and all you needed was a 480p 2.5 FPS video to make people think you were the real deal. For a long time, these streams and progress sagas were more than enough to fool the community, until everyone opened their fucking eyes and noticed the obvious. People quickly began to catch on to the true extent of Exen's abuse of a whole community's trust, mostly because Exen's a massive fucking moron, whose hacking abilities are total ass. A smart hacker would go for levels in the top 20 at most to help them stay undetected, but since Exen's a narcissist who wants to be known as the best in the world at playing geometry dash levels that look like this, he exclusively went for current top 3s and crazy impossible levels which there's no way in shit anyone could ever beat. Even today, let alone in 2018, once people started looking for them, his poorly thrown together macros were easily spotted, and within weeks his reputation crumbled into fine ash. But even after getting exposed hundreds of times, he never once admitted to being a piece of shit, and all of his shady projects became even more suspicious and questionable. And to make things worse, not only does he use a guitar strategy of plugging your ears like a big baby bitch, as well as ignoring and dismissing everyone who rightfully wanted Exen punished for his years of maintaining the impossible task of single-handedly giving all Russian speakers a bad name purely by language association amongst an entire community, he chose instead to bully those exposing his actions and leverage his power as a larger channel over them by falsely striking them down, as well as flagging anyone who questioned that he might not be totally legitimate. You know, like a cunt. By this point, you would have to be a next level dumbass to believe anything this guy says. Unfortunately, there's a lot of dumbasses out there. But good old Exen isn't satisfied enough with only shamelessly abusing the trust of hundreds of thousands of people. Now that people above the age of 6 don't trust him anymore, he no longer has a medium to exploit the Geometry Dash community for petty cash. All but one. The worst medium of them all. Because only profiting off other people's work wouldn't be evil enough. No. He has to try to destroy them all as he does it. And that's where I draw the line.
Ah, shit. Signal's busted. That should do it. Thank God.
Exen is a terrible creator, and that is not more obvious than an Abyss of Darkness, his worst project yet. Which part of these is his? Well, if you're looking for it, you better give up now, because it's none of these. He contributes basically nothing, except everything bad about the level which single-handedly makes it play like dick and balls. Exen is, of course, too lazy to make a real part in the level, so instead he chooses to contribute gameplay, as helpfully marked here by this gigantic obnoxious banner which fucks over the player. Which sure is weird, because after all, his decoration fits perfectly for an extreme demon of top 1 difficulty. He's shown once that he can decorate on par with everything you see here. Good on him for not flexing his skills. This is quite impressive, and it's also the only single piece of decoration on his channel. There's no credits here. That means this decoration must be his, right? He wouldn't have someone else make his entire part for him and then pass it off as his own, right? So that means his area of expertise lies more in the field of gameplay. So that means his gameplay must be great, right? There's no way it could be total shit, right? Exen's gameplay is terrible, and its only purpose is to demonstrate to the audience why you should not under any circumstances make anything like how he does. When it comes to levels, Exen follows the same school of thought as pop extreme demon creator Ice Cave, and by school of thought I of course mean abusing their connections as an already popular figure by carelessly grabbing a bunch of semi-unknown creators and forcing them by gunpoint to churn out subpar extreme demons at the speed of sound before taking 600% of the credit after contributing virtually nothing. And by creator, what I really mean is the executive producer, but somehow even shittier than that, because all they provide is 20 seconds of bad gameplay that they shed out in 3 hours in exchange for a mountain of views which could trend above the millions. Even though their total effort expended on the project works out to around 0% if you round up. And if that sounds like a really shitty deal, that's because it is. And just like Ice Cave, Exen is a con man whose best ability is fooling everyone into thinking that they don't suck big stinky balls. Both his gameplay and the gameplay from the hundreds of other creators they directly inspired are laid out like this because they're purpose-built shorts look good on YouTube and aren't meant to be played except as an instrument of torture in a maximum security prison. It's a new trend in level making that I can't stand for a second, mostly because it sucks. It's a type of flashy and impossible to sight read gameplay that's supposed to make the viewer go, holy shit, look at all those fucking colors! But it is absolutely unbearable to play, and that despicable stop-start crap can be seen everywhere here. But it's not even consistent with that. Just like the level's theme, the style of gameplay changes every 13 fucking seconds and throws level completely out of whack. Each part's visuals is a dice roll from the desperate attempts by the slaves they forced to work on this shit to salvage anything from the old chicken bones he gave them. And they didn't quite get there, but with what they were given, damn. Someone get these guys to repaint the fucking Sistine Chapel, because to work on this shit must have been goddamn exhausting. Not only did they have to work on this layout, which would have been a nightmare to decorate, they also had to spend all eternity listening to the sound of piss. Actually, now that I think about it, that's probably why the sync sucks, because they couldn't bring themselves to listen to Exen's pee noises. Everything wrong with Abyss of Darkness can be traced directly back to this man, and this game would have undoubtedly been better if he never touched it with his dirty, greasy, disgusting hands. Exen has never brought anything to the Geometry Dash community that can even be misattributed as positive, and all that he contributes is a never-ending story of greed, which is read to us in the form of one of the worst levels I've ever had the misfortune to experience. The story of a big fat fucking loser who decides that they are entitled to the admiration of their community, and somehow managed to get there through the forbidden art of lies, deception, and manipulation, and lost it all in spectacular fashion through what better but his own ignorance. Which sounds way too fucking dramatic for describing some internet moron, but on the other hand, this is literally the plot of Shark Tale. Although to be fair for a moment, Exen would never be as likable as an F-tier DreamWorks protagonist like Oscar from Shark Tale, because at least he got the sexy fish. All Exen has is a bad level and an infinitely long book of bad ideas. Every single feature in Abyss of Darkness brought to you by this scuba is to follow the trend of more popular and way more deserving levels. This level's a mega collab because all the others are. This one's an open verification because all the others are. This level's hell themed because all the others are. This level's top 1 difficulty because all the others are. The gameplay makes you want to go back in time to kill your grandfather because all the others are. This level's attempt at edginess is pathetic because all the others are. Exen's one behind this level because God is dead and left behind a sick practical joke by the name of Nero in his absence who barely knows what a fucking abyss is. No exaggeration, every single thing bad about this literal pile of flaming dog shit is because this one evil shitlord's unquenchable thirst for internet points. Any improvements that he could have made with literally no effort on his end was cut due to making the shitty ass level appeal more to the 11-year-old boys that found this game 2 days ago and spend 30 hours a day ripping their dick off to 5,000-year-old funny game levels. That appeal is through the ever increasingly popular strategy of artificial legendary status. The actor pointing to a 500-year-old Victorian era arthritic piece of shit and then declaring it the most important historical artifact in the universe who needs to be preserved until the end of fucking time for the sake of crafting an interesting story that the level itself cannot even dream of backing up. But that sure doesn't stop everyone from trying to turn every single level ever made into some type of biblical tale of epic proportions, no matter how terrible and how stupid the level is. Because I'ma keep it honest, if you make a level seem more important than it actually is, that shit inhales YouTube views like Kirby, and that shit is satisfying, even if it is the lamest and phoniest shit ever. But you know what's even lamer than that? Pulling that stunt on your own terrible level, grooming that shitty ass level like a prize poodle, just for the sole purpose of spreading both its name and your name through the galaxy, which is the whole honest point of this remake, to get people talking about it. Oh yeah, it's a remake by the way. I never mentioned it, because these two levels are exactly the fucking same, but one of them is super outdated for 2018, and the other one is super outdated for 2022. These two levels are so goddamn similar that every single creator worth their weight in whatever else the fuck you weigh creators in noticed that even the structuring of the level is unchanged between the two of them. You guys couldn't even be bothered to even give the illusion like you guys aren't just trying to clean this level up for modern day standards by hitting it with a big shit glowy stick. I guess it turns out that their 4 years of expert ninja training was spent finding out how to build a malformed dragon that looks like it was built how to use pipe cleaners that appears 12% in for 0.8 seconds. The only thing gained from remaking this level is the terrifying knowledge that there's a level still out there, still on the loose, yet to be purged from existence, that still has off-screen timings in 2022. It's been 9 whole years, and with the collaborative effort of 22 people, you guys made no progress at all. You learned nothing since August 13th, 2013. You couldn't let go of this literal day one one problem after 30,000 more instances of the sun doing loop-de-loops in empty space. Why? Because if they fixed it up to the level being playable, like they should have, then it almost certainly would have been completely unrecognizable, meaning that they no longer have the level on their hands that fits the dumbass legendary criteria, which demands that the level must be untouched with all the bullshit left in. Making it less shitty is not an option, because it was never an option. And because of with how many fucking times Exen's name is attached on this thing, to the average Abyss of Darkness fan, this is just a solo project that Exen built himself like a fucking champion. CD music doesn't exist. Who in the fuck is that? That person isn't real. That's just a ghost. That's just LCD sound system 6-year-old nephew. Exen is grabbing on to the legacy of Abyss of Darkness for dear life because there's a real high chance that if this level becomes huge, this level replaces Exen being a lying piece of shit as his new identity and only personality trait, because he's 22 years old and it's about time he finally fucking has one. For someone like Exen, who's a literal pile of garbage, the idea of crawling out of the giant black hole of a reputation he spent years tunneling himself into is the opportunity of a lifetime, and his elevator is Abyss of Darkness. This level is bad because once again, that criteria demands it. A decently fun level that rests at number 117 on the demons list isn't gonna get butts into seats, but you bet your bitch that the number one hardest thing ever born out of Satan's dickhole, along with a 12-minute long Marvel trailer and 15 sweaty losers fighting to verify it will. You may remember this exact sequence of events from every single number one ever. Stalemate Redux quietly and respectfully chilling at number one for 5 days doesn't give you a million views now, does it? This was never about making a good level. This was about making people forget that Exen spent his young adult years being a human tapeworm in hopes that this number would go up and the conflicts and hacks level section would take up less space on Exen's wiki page. And that is why I hate Abyss of Darkness. Not just because it looks and plays like a pile of wet newspapers, because of something worse. This isn't a level, it's a vanity project. This level could have been infinitely less shitty if all of these expert extreme demon creators didn't choose to grant this treatment to a waste of patience like Abyss of Darkness. If it was treated like a real level with flaws that needed to be fixed and less like a curated money printing internet freak show, we would not be gathered here today to voyeuristically peer into one of the single worst Geometry Dash levels in recent memory. A level so exhausting that I've straight up stopped playing Geometry Dash altogether and started playing a completely different game just to avoid this one level. Because this idea of the demon list having the unchecked permission of running the entire Geometry Dash community on its own that people like Exen perpetuate is completely backwards and unsustainable. And if it goes on for much longer, it will only result in inevitable collapse, and that will come much sooner than you can imagine. Because it already has. Abyss of Darkness is one of the few levels that have unlocked the ability to reflect everything wrong with the Geometry Dash community. Just like its leader, this level's existence has only brought unparalleled pain and suffering amongst the community it inhabits, in ways never before seen. Never before in this game's 1,000-year-long reign has an individual level caused a rift in the community of millions just from being released. The day that this big piece of shit was raided was so traumatic that till the very day the sun blows up, May 22nd will always be remembered as the day when an entire community went, God fucking damn it. Even if only for a few hours, the entire community was in a frenzy as years of extreme demons dominating the landscape unsupervised finally caught up to everyone, and Abyss of Darkness was the final straw. Because of the insanely unfair preferential treatment that every single extreme demon gets for no reason, it's important that the decision to rate any extreme demon is something not to be taken lightly. Because of the inevitable shitstorm that follows, which is secretly an F5 tornado in disguise that's 2 years long and wipes out planets the size of your weird uncle's porn collection. Unlike when rating some regular everyday dingus like Titty Touching Simulator, when choosing whether or not an extreme demon gets rated, the real decision is, am I willing to have this level obnoxiously shoved in my face dozens of times a day everywhere I go for the next 9 months? Does that sound like a good deal? And with Abyss of Darkness, the answer is obvious. Just for this one level, the entire mod team had to assemble, like the shitty Avengers, just to decide whether or not Abyss of Darkness cleared the bare minimum standard to be rated and is truly on par with hit classics such as Buckle Your Pants and Booty Touching Simulator. But they correctly noticed that the level sucks enormous gorilla dick and launched it right back into Exen's stupid fucking face, just like they should have. But unfortunately for us, that's not the whole story. Meanwhile, the mod team was in the big stinky boardroom calculating the fanciest way to tell Exen to piss off. Hundreds of thousands of fans of shitty gameplay channels emerged from the sewers and display levels of intelligence around about as high as you would expect by harassing the mod team to get it rated with a really annoying hashtags, as if they fucking do anything. And upon seeing the unfortunate verdict that a group of dozens of creators hundreds of thousands of times smarter than them all combined correctly deduced that Abyss of Darkness does in fact suck ass, they weren't having none of that. So they harassed the mods even harder in the hope that it magically made the level rated, which it did not. Despite the 500,000 child casualties lost to the war effort, their decision remained unchanged. But then Minecraft dropped the ball, and now we all have super AIDS. By this point, no one was enjoying themselves and everyone was absolutely miserable. The only thing that this level ended up causing was fear and panic. Those who took interest in the level in peace could not avoid the shitstorm, and detractors got their profiles dislike bombed. What started as a hard level ended with complete and total chaos, discord of an entire community, all because of one man's quest to escape the stigma of his former years through the medium of what can easily be considered one of the worst levels of recent memory. Hope it was worth derailing an entire community along the way, but hey, if it means the kiddies are entertained with the cool wishy-wishy motion graphics and your pockets are lined, it's all goods if you encourage dozens of never-ending online brigades and virtual rights to keep the gravy train rolling. Everything's all good, because as the old saying goes, fostering community-wide chaos is all good and well if it doesn't negatively affect you personally. Congrats on 100k, Exen. Hope you're happy with your army of 13-year-olds who'll leave you to rot as soon as they finish using you like a fleshlight. Savor it while you can. It's all downhill from here. So why did I make this video? Why did I go through the months of writing, recording, editing, and sitting on my ass doing fuck all just to complain about some Russian fucko in his dark hole of darkness? Why go through all that effort where I could do something more honorable, like debate people on Twitter about what extreme demon is harder than the other while we rub each other's members? After all, that seems to be what everyone else is doing, as in, the only thing everyone else is doing. Sitting in a large pool of communal piss and yammering on endlessly about how the new overhyped pile of shit is the greatest, most important thing ever, and how it's 100% necessary that all progressive discussion has to be completely wiped away because we all have to stop everything and look at the shiny new fad. Meanwhile, independent works that dare not to pander to 11-year-olds by being so overly and pointlessly difficult to the point of being unplayable get overshadowed 1,000-fold by some factory-made corporate dribble designed to cater to drooling simpletons who only play 6 levels a year and still think God Eater is the greatest level ever made. After all, YouTube is a soulless corporation, so the YouTubers might as well join them. For years now, we've been fostering a dumb environment where creativity is antithetical to success. Unless of course it's creativity that looks good in YouTube thumbnails, because then shitty YouTubers can milk it relentlessly until the milk becomes powder and no one, not even Billy Preschooler, wants to hear about it anymore. YouTubers, listen to me for once in your fucking lives when I say that people are sick of your shit. We all know what you're doing. Nobody wants to see these levels, and we definitely don't want to see your over-embellished videos where you pretend a level is more important than it is for 7 minutes. I'm not the only one who's sick of these fake levels and their even faker stories shouted to us at 250 decibels everywhere we go to no end. Why is everyone's favorite level nowadays a 5,000-year-old relic that's covered in flies that only 5 people have ever heard of? Because people respect when creators go against what's popular and try something new and innovative. We don't play these levels because they're so impossibly ridiculously hard. We've already got black.com, we don't need more hard things to fuck us over. The reason we all play Geometry Dash in the first place is that at its core, this game is an art form, and we don't appreciate it when the creators behind the art form that single-handedly keep it alive get undercut in favor of preserving endless shouting matches about levels that don't have an original bone in their bodies. That shit sucks. It's depressing as shit seeing excellent creators like Grenade of Tacos and other good creators with less stupid looking names waste their potential by working on levels people forget about the moment that this number gains an extra digit. Cause as we established, the GD player base can't count that high. Oh, what's that? You spent the time, dedication, and ingenuity to make a level that doesn't mindlessly pander to babies, that expertly carves out its own niche, and has been universally celebrated as one of the best levels of the year? Well, fuck you! You won't get anything from it, while shitty gameplay channels 50 times your size that spend 5 minutes recording it will get more views than your entire internet history eclipsed 10 times over. Why play a level yourself when hundreds of cookie-cutter personality-less gameplay channels have an endless stream of bright, flashy, pre-chewed dribble readily available for your consumption? Why bother go out and search for interesting creators when you've got homogenous emotional shout number 5000 who's offering a safe, no consequences, soft and squishy YouTube experience? And ain't that how all media should be consumed? Things are best when everything's nice and comfy so people don't have to use their brains. Sure, they cannibalize views from the original person that spent 50 quintillion hours meticulously putting the the project together, but hey, those channels are just better at satisfying the algorithm. And if you think you're watching a real top player playing, well fuck you again. You're watching a robot player level in a run that the YouTuber haphazardly threw together in an afternoon. The entire purpose of everything you're seeing right now was manufactured solely to generate YouTube views. These levels are so goddamn shitty that even the people who play shitty levels don't want to touch them. Now doesn't that sound great? Abyss of Darkness is a level so terrible that the only way to quantify how terrible this level really is exposing the evil secrets of the Geometry Dash industry. Like it's a $50 squillion company that uses Vietnamese child sex slaves to make its folding chairs. We've gotten to a point that the entire community now revolves around everything that Abyss of Darkness represents. If anyone else made this video, it would just be 30 minutes of them snitching on themselves. A move so fucking stupid that even A on Air would say it's a bad idea. And that's why I'm making this video, because no one else will. Abyss of Darkness is the worst level of all time because it's the least good. It's a bad level by a bad person. It makes me feel bad. The fans of this level are bad. The haters of this level are bad. It's not any fun to talk about, and I can guarantee long after Abyss of Darkness is completely forgotten about like it should, and single-handedly kill this channel. This video is a suicide mission. A desperate Hail Mary that maybe, just maybe, a single person is willing to hear the thoughts that have been suppressed by the sounds of moronic screeching of the zombified masses. But if you're still listening to me right now, and you're not a zombie, let this video serve as a reminder that, believe it or not, there are things such as bad ideas, like this. See? Shouldn't have done that, but maybe I should have, because me shattering that mug has brought me more joy and more catharsis than this level ever will. And unlike the mug, long after Abyss of Darkness is completely forgotten about like it should, its impact will still remain, linger and echo inside every other level that comes after. Forever, the future of Geometry Dash has been influenced by the success of this level and the precedent that its rating has set. And if only just by a little bit, every single level is now a little bit more like Abyss of Darkness than it was yesterday. And with that final statement, it is fair to call this all something that is truly abysmal, and will forever live on as the worst Geometry Dash level of all time.